welcome back to another episode. They haven't thrown us off the interwebs yet, so I guess we're doing something right. So thank you for the awesome feedback for the first couple of episodes. It's been like a passion project, and the fact that everybody seems to like it is all that much sweeter. But I have linked outfit in the show notes below, and everybody loves these boxes, so I linked that. Also, these maps came from Etsy, but I have very similar ones linked on Amazon, and you can get that either below or on my LTK. And then same thing with the books, because I know a couple people were asking. So we'll get that business out of the way. And today I'm going to the notes, so we're going to need the readers, because yes, a couple years ago I went to Readerville. God, that's corny. Anyway, but today we're going to talk about things that sort of rob you of your joy. And this podcast is all about sort of living that authentic to you, not me, not anybody else, life that's balanced and fulfilling. And I think if you do any one of these things, even if it's 5 minutes a day or once a year, it can kind of peck away at that. So I thought it would be an interesting list to get through, and I'll kind of read through the list just so I don't miss anything. And I did some geeky research on it, and then we'll have a chat about it. So the first thing was like directed to, specifically at me, overthinking every situation. So I think that is one that we can dive into. Seeking validation from others, neglecting self-care, clinging and holding on to expectations, comparing yourself to others, living and dwelling in the past, and then chasing after happiness. So just for overthinking every situation, not only, obviously, you don't need me to point out that it's mentally exhausting, right? And you can have the negative emotions of anxiety and depression, irritability, anger, and self-loathing, but it can cause relationship issues and decision-making difficulties, because then I'm a big ruminator, and then I wind up overthinking everything. As much as I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of person, sometimes I'll spend my time, I guess it's also the dwelling in the past, but sort of just overthinking. And sometimes you just have to kind of roll with it. And I think my best decisions in life have been when I didn't overthink. So one thing that they pointed out, and in doing my research, was that you can take control of the things that you can control and let go of the rest. That was a tough one, because it sounds easy to say, but it's hard to do, where you just sort of control all the little components that you can manage, whether it's setting yourself up for success, like we were talking about with your diet or food or relationships, and letting the other person's half go because you can't control them, and asking yourself if your thoughts can be made more constructive. So kind of stopping yourself before it goes off the rails, before you lose 2 hours of overthinking, maybe you lose 20 minutes, and then give yourself a pat on the back. You're like, hey, stop that, before it went off the rails. But I thought that was interesting to sort of, give yourself a little check and balance. And if you stop it before it goes too far, I think that'll help. And then seeking validation from others. I don't necessarily fall into this, but I don't allow myself to go down that rabbit hole, because I wouldn't be doing this because somebody out there might think I'm insane, right? Like, I'm not that interesting. Why my podcast? There's a million channels on YouTube. What makes us different or this different? I would never have done this. So choosing retail as a career, I felt like it kind of chose me, because I don't like to sit still and shut up. So I felt like it was the perfect thing for me to do. And I've really enjoyed being, an entrepreneur, but also an executive for other businesses. So I didn't worry if people thought I, was a shop girl and I only did retail, because that can just mess with your mind, and I wouldn't let myself kind of think about that. So this one isn't raw to me, but I know a lot of us do the validation, and again, they, leads to your anxiety, low self-esteem, insecurity. It makes you lose sight of what makes you special, right? And then you feel judged, and you don't trust your gut. And my thing is, like, if you compare yourself to others, you forget what makes you awesome, and then the way you speak to yourself. I just had a recent conversation. The person was so negative. And I was like, would you talk to a friend like that? But we say such mean things to ourselves. So I think seeking validation turns into self-loathing, and you can kind of, I'll only do this if so-and-so deems it important. But if it's important to you, that to me is the only thing that matters. So this isn't one that plagues me, but I'm sure it does a lot of other folks. And then, like, neglecting self-care. We talked about this, and I forget what episode it was. But when you don't take care of yourself physically, right? We're talking about stress and lack of self-care can lead to insomnia. We talked about the importance of sleep, heart problems, weakened immune function, headaches, stomach aches, fatigue, and illness, anxiety, depression, and it can strain your relationship, right? And neglecting your self-care can also hurt, your performance at work. And it could be as simple as choosing social media over doing your work, avoiding exercise, eating unhealthy foods, overworking. So that's neglecting yourself. And I think that will rob you of your joy, because then you're maybe crabby with the friends and fam because you didn't realize that just didn't work hard enough on yourself, and then you're mad at yourself that you missed that deadline, so you're just going to be cranky at others because you're acting out, that kind of vicious cycle, I guess. And changes you can do are exercising, meditation, reducing caffeine if that's a thing, alcohol, eating well, and back to sleep. Sleep comes up in every single one of these, and it's just really important. And maybe you work in like Zack was saying in the other episode, 10, 15 minutes, just try to find a little snippet of time, lock yourself in the bathroom. Maybe it's take a walk at work or whatever it is. And it sounds simple, but by neglecting that, you will, you're putting yourself in peril of getting ill. And then, that's a whole other expense, right? And then self-loathing that you made yourself sick, and you just wind up kind of doing that, shame spiral. And I think it can be so harmful. And then clinging and holding on to expectations where this isn't what I thought marriage would be, or this isn't what I thought owning a business would be, or this isn't what I thought insert thing here, having a baby. And I think there's a lot of shame around, like if something's difficult that everybody thought would be, oh, it must be awesome you own your own business. They don't want to hear your money issues. They think it's great. You don't work for anybody else. You have it so easy. And then you're like, well, I guess I can't complain about it. And then my expectations, maybe I'm doing something wrong. So I think, giving yourself a little grace to sort of be like, this isn't exactly the way I thought it would be. And am I checking all my boxes? Am I doing everything I can do to make it better, but also asking for help? But I think those things can sort of rob you of just that balanced life that kind of we're all seeking, right? That we can do the fun while making money and spending time with friends and family. We got to wear like a lot of hats. And so I will toss it to Team Zack and Talia. Like, are any of the first four ones that like hit you, that they're talking straight to Zack?
Yeah, no, good question. I would say cling to expectations is the one that stuck out to me. Basically everyone struggles with different things wherever you're in life. And like, I've always been, pretty good about not really caring what people think, but I care a lot about what I think, right? Like that kind of self-drive, so to speak. So, I have like business goals for 2024. Like if we're not getting to them, but we're still doing well, like I'll be a lot harder on myself. I wanted a certain time for my half marathon. If I missed it by 3 or 4 minutes, which I did, but like not beating myself up over it, and like finding the positives within my, I guess, range of like, I'm still pushing myself forward, pushing the business forward in a positive fashion. So not clinging to expectations and like rolling with the punches.
Because there's a balance, right? Like letting yourself off the hook. If you skipped 30 of your 50 days training and you didn't hit the mark, that's cause and effect, right? Mm-hmm. But if you did all the things and maybe it was 1,000 degrees like it is now, and we're on the surface of the sun, and you missed it, or you tweaked your ankle or you had to miss something, like that's not an excuse, that's a reason. So it's sort of having that balance of letting an expectation go, but also holding yourself accountable, but not beating yourself up. And it's like, how do you do all that?
And I think that plays into also like a positive, like it's like, if no one, like you got to be like semi easy on yourself, because like if you're not easy on yourself, who's going to be? Right. So as long as I'm kind of always driving towards the goal, like obviously, if I need to pick me up or I need a self pep talk, like, hey, you got to get it together here. But keeping in mind of like, we're still pushing towards the goal, whether it's 100 miles per hour or 50, like I'm still going to get there.
Right. Progress is progress.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's why I think, and I don't mean to like chat about age, but again, I'm 48. And Zack is turning 30 on
30 next Wednesday. I'm
next
old,
Wednesday.
Old man.
Woo, woo, woo. Oh, don't say that to somebody who's 48.
some gray in the beard.
And we've got Talia, who's 16 and going into her senior year, and I have nieces her age, and I'm thinking I ultimately would love husbands, wives, fiancés, this to be like a group watch, right? Where this appeals equally to men and women and teenagers, because I don't know what it's like. We were just talking before we went on air. I cannot imagine being a teenager in the age of social media. And we hear it and see it all the time, but she's walking in those shoes. And I love kind of the team where I can have her perspective. She's helping me make some decisions from her perspective, which is, super valid. I've got like beta testing of all the different demos here, and I love it. But yeah, I just think the different perspectives is super interesting.
So, like we said, I'm 16. My name's Talia. I'm going into my senior year of high school. Definitely being a teenager in like the age of social media, it's very overwhelming. I wanted to like go back to like the overthinking part of it, because like I overthink of like the things that I'm gonna post on social media. Who's gonna see it? What are the comments? What if I don't get likes? All those things that you think about as a teenager, because you're constantly thinking about other people's perspectives, and like what others think about you. And even like outside of social media, thinking about like school, like if I don't do well on this test, maybe I won't do better on the next one, and then I don't pass my exam.
Yeah.
And then my GPA.
You've got yourself
like,
failing, and then, yeah, exactly. Yep.
Like there's so many steps right now at this point in my life where like I just have to get through the next one. But then it just feels like there's so many more, and I just need to get through.
Do you have, not to put you on the spot, of course I've already done that, but do you have like a little coping mechanism, or when you find yourself overthinking, do you just post it and say, you know what, love me as I am, like, or do you not post it? Do you talk yourself out of it? Do you have a little thing that talks you off the ledge?
My friends are definitely like one of my biggest supporters. I lean on them for everything. Anytime I'm overthinking, having like another opinion to kind of like calm.
They're your cheerleader to tell you you're not going to fail out. You're fine.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're definitely my cheerleaders. So my family as well, like relying on them, and kind of also like you said, like sometimes you have to just be like, let me just be myself.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not what the world likes, then I'm still gonna do my thing.
And I think if we're to take anything away like from this podcast, why, like I keep saying, I'll hear there's a million podcasts. If you don't have one by now, forget it. There's no room. I disagree. We're unching our way in, but I think it's one of those things that like I want to be authentically me, and I'm a lot. But if I'm not your cup of tea, keep it moving, because there's something out there for you. If you want to watch a podcast, if you want to do listen to an audio something while you're running or whatever, I think there's room for this kind of jibber jabber, right? Of just sort of letting it all hang out, and that we're amongst friends, even if somebody's in like Denmark watching this, or France. Yes, I'm free to come over. But yeah, it's just that kind of thing that I very much appreciate, because I'm sure it's raw to talk about, right? Like 16 is a tough age, and I thank you for giving us a little insight there. So with the list, so comparing ourselves to others, is what she was just talking about, and I think it's so hard, and you outgrow it in some way. So with age, like there's always that thing that you'll hear, whether it's Betty White or, something like that. She was always like, the older you get, the less F's you give. Right. But there is something to be said for that I wish I could go back to who I was before August 11th, 2017, when my dad passed away. One phone call changed everything. And what I thought was important wasn't. And you don't know until you know, but you do anything to not know, because then that thing wouldn't have happened. So I used to compare myself, worry about things like, am I making enough? Am I working enough? Am I driving the right car? Am I doing whatever? But then I, let that go. Now it just doesn't matter. So I guess there's sort of hope, but unfortunately with that comes like a lot of times the things that like slap you in the face with the like, that's such BS, because this important thing has just happened. So I sort of envy the naivete I used to have when I used to think that stuff mattered. Not that grades don't matter and all of that, but it's hard to you outgrow it to some degree, I guess. And then dwelling in the past is another one, I guess, that links right to like hits me where I'm at, where I'll ruminate, I'll overthink. And it's like if I say it hard enough or think it hard enough, somehow we're going to transport back to 2014 so I can fix that thing I screwed up royally. But it doesn't work. Obviously I've not mastered time travel, or this podcast would be way more popular, right? If I had. But yeah, so I think it's so important to not, like they call them happiness killers, right? Where, I'm missing the cool moment here because I'm worried about either that silly thing I said or that flub I said, or I didn't do something right 10 years ago. And that's like not germane to this moment right here. But that's a tough one for me. And then like chasing after happiness, I thought was kind of an interesting one. So I had to dig into it a little bit. And the fact that sports analogy is like they keep moving the goalposts, right? So maybe you feel it with school, or you feel it with getting married or owning your own business, that like I achieved that thing. Okay, so I started my own business, but now it moved and I need to make a certain money, or I need to have a certain amount of clients. But you check that box and you thought you'd be happy when you got there. But then the goalposts move because you're like, yeah, but I need to double my income, or I need to double my revenue stream. So I think it's like that you keep chasing it. You don't enjoy how to get there. Like, I know we're going to do a lot more podcasts, and I want to enjoy each one without thinking about jumping ahead or worrying about what I did on the last one. I could have done it better, or was pouring and my hair got huge, or whatever the deal is. But I think not chasing the happiness, and it's a destination, right? Enjoying kind of the ride, and all the things I did to get here, for better or worse, made me who I am in this moment, and I got to roll with it.
I think it's important, and I try to remind myself this, like there's always going to be the next goal, or like there's always going to be that next line item on the list. Like it's not like you can cover them all and it's like, all right, I can just chill for 4 months now and then my list will pop up again. It's like there's always going to be some self-improvement on business, on your mental health, on your physical fitness. Like there's always going to be like the next one. So it's like a race without a finish line. So you can't get like daunted by that. Like you just have to expect like, hey, the next thing is coming, and the thing I did previously is going to prepare me better for A, B, and C, and just kind of
And sometimes
keep it moving,
that's what feeds you too. Like
100%.
I'm type A, not in the sense of like traditional, where it didn't hit me till I was well out of college. Like I did okay in high school. I was fine through college. And then when I got into the business world, I became like psycho type A, work. All of the drive kicked in, and having those goals and sort of the next goalpost, it's sort of what drives me, right? Planning on this and planning the episodes, and even down to what to wear and all of that. But how to not let that, if we're talking about like robbing you of your joy, of your happiness killer, or throwing off that balance. Like there's some photography we will release I did a photo shoot sort of on a hammock. I thought it was kind of a cool, physical embodiment of like how hard it is to balance in one of those damn things, in heels, by the way. But the idea of the things that drive us are the goals, right? The race without a finish line, trying to like better your PR, right? Your race time, push yourself, but also how does it not take over your life, rob you of your joy, throw off the kilter with your job? And it's like, I think that's the constant, thing that sort of gets us if we let it. So I think, kind of chatting about that, and getting to the point where you trust your gut and maybe it's a limit, right? Set a limit for yourself that, we'll talk about business, or we'll set a goal. We'll check in here and there, but I'm not going to check hourly on the gross income of the business, or I'm not going to be so manic about it and almost give yourself a rule within a rule, right? That you'll allow yourself a little crazy time, but then you got to reel it back in, because then it will rob you and you'll forget to put on the playlist when you're cooking. I blast, and we want to share a favorite playlist, and I've got 100 greatest jazz standards that everybody should know. That's my cooking music. So as soon as that goes on, I'm like Pavlov's dog. I'm sort of programmed. I chill a little bit. I start getting my stuff out and cook. And
I've noticed too, I wish I could give the person credit that told me this, but a long time ago I was told like you always think your most recent mistake is going to be your biggest. So like thinking about Talia, like, oh, I didn't study for a test and I didn't do as well. Like you think it's the end of the world, and you can scale that up. Like, oh, I didn't get into the college that I want to. I didn't have the best job interview. My life's over. Like, you always think like where you're at is like going to be like the worst that happens when, if I could, I could fast forward 10 years from high school, it's like, well, that it really didn't matter. And then you could tell me like, oh, like, your first year of being engaged, like didn't go well. It's like, well, at the end of the day, you figure it out. It's like, you always think your most recent mistake is your biggest when 99 times out of 100, it won't be.
And it doesn't define you because most people in the world don't know it even happened. And even those who do, if they're worth being in your circle, they're going to kind of forgive you and allow you all your foibles. But I also would say make sure your circle is worthy of being there, where I thought people were my friends. And then when my dad passed away, somebody was 40 minutes away and like didn't bother coming to the service because it was 40 minutes. And I was like, and then I had somebody surprise me and drove 14 hours round trip to come. So, the people that are in that inner circle to kind of remind you the latest mistake isn't the end of the world. Make sure they're worthy of it and they'll be there when you make that mistake, because anybody can be your friend when things are great, right? But, and maybe it kind of feeds back to, the overthinking, like you were saying, your friends kind of reel you back in and, maybe I'm lucky I have a great mom and I had a great dad, and maybe somebody doesn't have that, and my heart breaks for folks that don't have like a strong family unit. But then maybe you find, I don't know, comfort in podcasts, message boards, listening to things, or going to support groups or whatever it is. But I guess just like find your people that'll sort of help you through that, because it does, like the little joy killers every day. If you feel like crap by noon, those are things. So second half of the list, I'll put you on the spot again. You said comparing, but do you dwell in the past? Do you chase the happiness? Like, those things kind of hit home, or?
Yeah, I would say dwelling in the past for me, like I would think of like the glory days, right? And like I made decisions where, like if I could go back in time, like I would change some things. Like I had a professional tryout for a soccer team. And the week before I got asked to play basketball, I was like, yeah, like, sure, I can play basketball. And I hurt myself like pretty bad where I needed surgery, and that derailed. So like, I can't think of it as, oh, if only I didn't say yes, but like, maybe we wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't make that decision, maybe.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah. And it's like, like the whole butterfly effect, like you can't think like that, because then you're going to overthink every little thing that you ever do.
But you never leave the house.
And you never leave the house, and then you're like almost scared to make a decision because you don't want to make the wrong one. So, and that kind of U-turns and circles
paralysis
back
by
around
analysis. Yep.
to like, you have to be easy on yourself, as long as like your intentions and like the routines that you have set are going to push you forward. Like you got to give yourself some grace. But out of the second half of the list, I would say that probably hit home the most.
Mm-hmm.
I know like it might sound a little silly, being a 16-year-old and like dwelling on the past, but I moved my whole life. Like every 2 years we would go to like a new state. My dad was in the military.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah.
So like definitely after leaving each place, I would try to make sure that I had like an impact on the people around me. I've done community service work throughout like every place that I've been. And like there are always times where I'm like, I wish I went to the shelter more, or I wish I went to my church more, or even things like I used to have friends that, I hung out all the time with, and then, we had this big fight, and now I'm not friends with them anymore, and they're probably not going to be the friends that I take with me to college. Like, those kind of regrets, I think about those a lot. But I think in the end, like, it did bring me to the place that I am today, and bring me to the people who I'm with today. So I'm grateful for the mistakes and for the regrets.
No, you are so wise beyond your years, because I think, and your opinion to me is just as valid as Zach's or mine. So don't ever qualify that you're only 16, because first of all, you've probably lived in more places than I have, or Zach has combined. And how brave, like, yes, you didn't choose to move, but I cannot imagine resetting my life, restarting my friends. And were those friends only in your life because that's what they were meant to be, only for a short period of time, and you take a little bit with you? But I think, God, that's like such wisdom, right? That they may or may not be the people that you go forward with, but you made an impact. But the fact that you're going to shelters and everything, like that to me is when you overthink the social post. I'll always think, I try to I'm kind of mad here in Richmond when there was a homeless area that I knew I could drive to, and I could, literally give clothing and food to people directly. And then they were sort of rehomed, and I don't know where they went. And part of me thinks to myself, oh, but for the grace of God, right? Like, I am 1 or 2 paychecks away from, as much as, I have clean clothes, we own our own business and stuff. But if things go south, like in a hot minute, I'm not that far. So I think that's so important that you already have that perspective, because, sometimes we get so busy with the things, right? Like, I surround myself with the things that I love, but at the end of the day, it's about the happiness, the balance, and the healthy mix of, keeping the people, but also, like, if those girls were mean and you got into a fight, they don't deserve to be in your life. But if it was a silly going forward, maybe you're like, oh, that was silly. And then you find a way to say, I'm sorry, and get back to it. So there's just a lot to unpack there. I think that was awesome.
No, I would agree. So I'm going to get into our Ask Jamie section.
All right.
Before we get into it, please like, comment, subscribe. If you got a lot out of it, maybe share it with a friend or family member. And then if you have anything that you want us to address on the show, please leave a comment on YouTube. Send us a DM on social media, comment on social media, like wherever you reach out, like we'll find you and hopefully answer your question on the show. So this question today comes from a gentleman named Brent.
Okay.
He titled it, "My family is my biggest critic."
Ah.
So he says that he has been an entrepreneur for 3 years. Kind of took a chance. His industry closed, and he decided to take an opportunity on his own. He's in his early 30s. And he said that he's had the business going for 3 years, and it's right about the point where he says, it's right about the point where I can maintain a good household for my family, pay my bills, with not a lot of wiggle room within that.
Okay.
I'm super proud of my business. I've worked really hard at it, and I think we provide a really good product. My issue today is that my family wants me to quit. My family has connections in big law firms where they think I can make a bigger financial impact for myself and my family. However, it's not my passion, and I'm extremely passionate about what I do now. How would you determine, if it were you, when to quote unquote quit, jump ship, go find a different opportunity? And then how do you deal with the ones being close to you being your biggest naysayers is what Brent has for us.
Woo, this is a good one. First of all, if you make it 3 years and owning your own business, as you know, that is a huge milestone. And people, there's 2 ways to answer it, right? You could be that they're, being mean, and it's coming from a jealousy, right? They want to start their own business. And we were just kind of teasing before, like, they hate us because they ain't us, in the sense of you've got the balls to do something they wouldn't, and you took the risk, and it comes out as negative. But if I'm gonna be glass half full over here, that they're scared for you, right? They're worried about all the things that can go wrong. They've read all the articles. It's so risky, but you've already said you're providing for your family. And they're putting a lot of import on maybe the title, right? Like maybe holding on to expectations. I thought my son would be a lawyer, and he's a fill in the blank, and he's not. And now it's kind of a them problem, that they had expectations for you, and to me, they raised a really great person who is following their dreams, and they haven't quite come around to the fact that they didn't raise a clone. So I think if we're being, given the benefit of the doubt that they're just worried for you, they're scared. Maybe you're married. I think you said you had kids. But if you're providing for them, maybe you don't have all the things that they thought you should have or would have, but that's their value scale, not yours. And if you're loving what you do and you're happy, you're also teaching either your current kids, maybe future kids, how to do the risk, how to do the hard thing, right? And not rely on connections. That might be the easier safety net. But maybe if it's coming, not all family members maybe have your best interest at heart, and maybe they're trying to, tear you down a little bit because they're either jealous or they don't even know why they're being so negative, and it comes from a place of jealousy. So if it were me, I would, if I had a great relationship with them, I would say, listen, if you're scared for me, don't. If I need help, maybe one day off the change, maybe 2 years down the line, we can revisit this. But right now I'm so good at what I'm doing, and I'm really loving it. And if it's not coming from a great place, just say, with all due respect, like I kind of can't have the negativity coming my way, and I don't want to see you less. I don't want to be around you less, but this is something I'm doing in my relationship with you. Your love or pride in me shouldn't be contingent on what I do for a living, and just sort of set those boundaries. And those uncomfortable conversations are, awkward, and maybe they'll give you the cold shoulder. I don't really know enough of the specifics, but try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're coming from a good place and they're just really worried about you. But if it's not a healthy thing and they've always been like picky pants and like not in it for you and they're not your cheerleader, I'm not saying let them go, but you got to kind of put them in a little compartment that you take them out as needed. But you got to give yourself, you've done the hard thing already. You did the hard work. You established a business. And like I said, I'm thinking it might be a little jealousy that you're rocking it out you forged your own path. So hopefully, Brent, that helps. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I got the wrap it up from Zack. I love it. Yeah. We're wrapping it up. So, next episode, TBD. Working on a couple different ideas. But like he said before, shoot us some notes, anything that comes to mind. And I will, like I said, look in the show notes. It's just underneath. I think you hit more and then it's a drop down menu and it'll take you to all the places. But hope you had a fun time.